Welcome to Catalyst, our Wednesday night Bible study. We have been tackling Revelation, right? Not Revelations. We have to kick that S off there, Revelation. We've been diving through it. Big prayer, thanks, brother. Okay, as you can see, we are now up to Revelation 12, right? We've gone through the beginning, right? We've gone through the letters to the churches. We've gone through the scroll. We've gone through the 7 seals. We've talked about the 7 trumpets. We're coming all the way in here. We're going to hit 12. Right? The dragon's war with the woman. This one's pretty intense. What did I do here? There we go. All right, so I broke this down into 5 sections. Right, 4 of them are pretty short. The fifth one's a little bit longer. Section 1: the woman, Israel, possibly. The red dragon, Satan, possibly. The male child, Jesus, possibly. The war and Michael's angels, right? Verse 7 through 9, and then rejoice and woe, right? We talked about that woe. That's been pretty intensive, and we're going to talk about it again. So, okay, like all the chapters in Revelation, this one's deep and fun to dive through. Okay, so let's start with the very first one here. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven. A wonder. What does that mean? Great wonder in heaven. What do you think that means? Anyone got a guess? What do you got?
Like a sign.
Absolutely 100%, right? It's exactly what it is. A wonder. The Greek word is sagmion. It means a sign, a mark, a token of miracles and wonders by which God authenticates the men sent by him, or by which men prove that the causes they are pleading is God, right? There's this big sign. You nailed it right on top, right? Big sign in heaven, right? So John's looking up, right? He sees this thing on heaven. And what is this sign? It's a woman clothed with the sun. The word clothed is peribalo. Means to put a thing on, right? So John looks up and he sees this image of a woman in the sky, right? And she's clothed with the sun. She's so bright, you can hardly see it. Imagine looking into the sun, right? It's going to make it kind of hard to really see everything that's going on. So super, super bright, right? John is probably having a hard time seeing everything very well. So who is this woman, right? Now, there have been several identifications suggested for the woman, right? People think differently on this topic. Now, in the patristic era, or you might have known or heard of this, called the period of the church fathers, right? This is about the end of the 1st century until the close of the 8th century time frame here, right? A man named Victorinus said that the woman was actually the ancient church of fathers and prophets and saints and apostles. It's an interesting look at it, right? You can read this in the manuscript of the Ante-Nicene Fathers of Volume 7, page 355. If you guys want that again, I'll read it out later. So there's one thought. So this is a conglomeration of all sorts of different people as who this woman is representing, right? So some, such as a scholar named Oberlin Lenski, thinks that the woman is an amalgamation of the Old and New Testament Israel. So this guy says it's Israel, but it's both Old Testament and New Testament Israel. Interesting line of thought on that one, right? So the Roman Catholic Church insists that this is the Virgin Mary giving birth. Right, specifically Mary, right? They're saying John's looking up, seeing this woman in the sky, this sign. The Roman Catholic Church says that this is Mary. The problem with this is they claim that Mary gave birth without pain. But the Bible shows it's not the case, as stated in Isaiah 66:7, which says, "Before she travailed, she brought forth or gave birth. Before her pain came, she was delivered of a man-child." Interesting state. So does it prove or disprove that Mary had the child Jesus with her without pain? I'll leave that one up to you. All right, so what do you guys think on that one? But we know in the verse coming up, it says that this woman is travailing in pain. So regardless of that, we know this isn't Mary, right? So most writers, though, do agree that this is Israel. So John here sees a woman, bright as the sun. Now he sees that she has the moon at her feet. And what are we talking about here, right? She's got the moon at her feet, and she also has a crown of 12 stars. So it's moon, I wanted to see exactly what they were talking about. Is this another image, like an idea of something, right? So what word is he using here? And he uses the word selene, which literally means the moon. So we're getting this better picture. We're looking at this image of the woman. Maybe she's an image of stars that looks like a woman, right? She's got the moon underneath her feet. She's got a crown of 12 stars in her head. She shines as bright as the sun, right? So we're seeing a celestial image here being given to us by John. Now the crown, we read, has 12 stars, right? And we know nothing in the Bible is by chance. This is very specific. Why are there 12 stars? So where have we seen this image before? Where have we seen this image of the 12 stars before?
Didn't Jesus have 12 stars in his hand when in Revelation? I don't remember.
12 stars in his hand. I'd have to go back and double check on that one. Possible. I do know what you're talking about, the 12 stars. No, think about a dream. What dream have we read about that talks about some stars? So it kind of goes back a little bit. Joseph's dream. Right? Joseph's dream. So if we go, we're going to go back and read this here in Genesis. We're going all the way back. 37. Genesis 37, verse 9 through 11. We're going to read this here. We're going to see what these stars are all about here. It says, and he dreamed yet another dream, and it told it his brethren. And he said, behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and his brother, and his father rebuked him and said unto him, what is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth? And his brothers envied him. But his father observed the saying. Now, the word observed means he kept that in his heart. He remembered this dream. So Joseph had a dream of 11 stars bowing down before him. Right? Joseph being, right? It's kind of interesting. So we get this other image of these 12 stars, right? So I believe the woman here most certainly is, yes?
Revelation 1:16 says he held 7 stars.
7 stars.
Oh, yeah, I'm seeing that.
Yeah.
I knew there were stars, I couldn't remember. Nice, thank
Exactly
you.
that, so,
7 stars. So, okay, this time we're talking about 12 stars on the diadem, the crown, right? So, again, I believe this woman is Israel, right? We're looking at an image, a celestial image of stars with the moon at her feet, sun backing her up, shining really bright, crown of stars on her head, right? The sun and moon here seem to depict glory and dominion that has been promised in the coming kingdom, right? The Jewish nation has been promised this kingdom, this earthly kingdom, right? Specifically, we understand this, the earthly kingdom that they've been promised. And so this image is showing John is the image of Israel with this glory that is to be promised, right? So again, we're seeing this image of the future here. Now, just as in Joseph's dreams where his father, mother, and brothers had to submit to his rule over them, again, the Jewish nation is going to have this earthly kingdom and is going to be represented, right, Jesus Christ. And then that's, again, another rabbit hole we'll dig into later. Okay, so that was verse 1. How are we hanging in there? We doing good? All right, verse 2. It says, John sees this woman going through very real pain of childbirth. The baby is about to be delivered to the world. This, I imagine, is a very intense scene, right? So, again, let's get this in here, right? John looks up. Celestial image of a woman. She's got the moon at her feet. She's got a crown with 12 stars in her head, shining bright, and the sun behind her shining so brightly he can hardly see. But what he can see is that she's travailing in pain about to give birth. This is quite a scene to be behold, I can imagine, right? You can see that John's got his eyes, he's fixed on this, like, probably like this, how bright it is, like, what am I looking at here? Section 2, the red dragon. Satan? Maybe? Let's see. Verse 3 says, and there appeared another wonder or sign in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his head. The great red dragon, 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns. This is the devil. We can all agree on this. This is the devil. Yes?
Is all this happening in heaven? Because it says it appears as a wonder in heaven.
That's correct. Now the heavens, there's 2 or 3 heavens.
The skies and...
Yep. So now for me, when John says in the very beginning that he was taken up in the spirit, for me that tells me that his body was left here on earth and he was taken into the spiritual realm. Me personally, again, this is not biblical. The Bible does not say this, but me, just from my studies, I kind of see John out of body experience up in heaven. So I don't think, like, this is, again, just me, like, he doesn't really see himself. He's just an image aware of what's happening all around him. So in heaven, for me, it's just he's looking up in just a direction. Again, not biblical. It doesn't say. I don't know. Good question, though. Good question. And yes, there are different heavens, and we'll get into. Yeah, there are 3, right? Yeah. There's 3 of them. So good question. Good question. So yes, this is the devil, the red dragon, but more specifically, this image represents the revived Roman Empire, which is described in Revelation 13:1. I'm going to read this here for you real quick. John again, he said, "And I stood upon the sands of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his head was the name of blasphemy." Ella Jamie, he's going to be diving deep into this one here next week. Yes, ma'am.
Why is Satan in heaven?
We're gonna talk about that. It's a good question. It's like, why is this fool all up in God's business? We are gonna address that. Right? So this is the revived Roman Empire. Right? This is a rabbit hole that you can dive down. A lot of people say that the Roman never disappeared, just turned into the Vatican. Again, rabbit hole. We don't have time for it. But we know that the world will be under a one powerful government, devil run. Right? We know that. We talked about this last time. The Bible specifically tells us that in the end time, that the government will be ruled under one entity. Now, that doesn't mean that there's going to be one nation. There's still going to be countries and nations and bits and pieces. But it's all going to be under one rule. You can kind of imagine this under the starting of it is the United Nations. Right? We all have our different countries, but we're all kind of under this little blue hat umbrella thing called the United Nations. So we're getting there. We're moving in the direction that the Bible tells us that we're going, right? So, power, yeah, okay, so the devil-run government. Now, read again, James is going to get into this again, but Revelation 13:4 gives us a look at the world during this time frame. And it says that they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, "Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" Again, I won't keep going into that because Brother Jamie, he's gonna knock that out of the park next week on 13. So we'll talk about the beast there. So this image is one of demonic power fighting against God and his angels. Right? There's this spiritual warfare that's going down here. Right? Paul tells us that our fight isn't against flesh and blood. It's a spiritual warfare. We've got evil entities and high power, like in high places of authority. Right? And John he's seeing this, right? Given to us in an image of the giant red dragon. Now in verse 4, right? It says, "And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth, and the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born." Now, so this is an interesting word in here. When I read this, it says his tail drew a third part. What does that mean? What does it mean to draw something? Hit me.
Like to take out of something,
Sure.
or like to make.
To bring in towards oneself, maybe, right? Right, nice. Drew. So I wanted to see this word, right? The word is suro, right? It means to draw, to drag one before the judge to prison, to punishment. I'm going to read that again. It means to draw or to drag one before the judge, to prison or to punishment. So it says that his tail drew a third part of the angels. It's very specific, saying he drug them down to prison and down to punishment. Not that he just pulled them out of the sky. Right? Specifically, this word tells us it was down to punishment. Right? So again, it's so important to just pull these words and really dig down and see what they are. Right? So we get this image of the tail swiping down. Now, there are a few opinions of when this is actually taking place, right? Some believe this is an image of the devil's original fall, right? We can read about that and what is prepared for them. I'm going to give you guys a bunch of verses about the devil's original fall where we can read about that. All right, first you can read this in Ezekiel 28, 13 through 19. Isaiah 14, 12 through 15. Luke 10, verse 18. 2 Peter 2, 4. Here again, references Satan's angels also falling with him. Genesis 3:14. 1 John 3:8. And one last one for you guys here is Matthew 25:41. That says, "Then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels." This is Jesus speaking, right? We know that hell itself was not prepared for us. I doubt it was prepared for the devil and the angels that left, right? They turned against God, right? They turned, God cast them out, hell was created for them, right? So, those on the left have not accepted Jesus Christ, right? We get this image, those on the left-hand side, where is Jesus Christ sitting and standing in the throne of God? Where's he at? On the right-hand side, right? We're in Jesus, so where would we stand with the throne of God? on the right-hand side. So when it says, everyone on my left, you don't want to be on that, right? These are the people who haven't understood the gospel yet. We haven't gotten this. They don't understand that in Romans 3:23 it says that all have fallen short of the glory of God, right? We've all messed up. These people haven't recognized that fact yet. They don't see that, right? They don't understand that in Romans 6:23 that the wages of that sin is death, right? So they don't know that they're making mistakes, and they don't know that these unknown mistakes are leading them straight to hell. They don't know. They don't know. These are those people, right? And that's why our job is so important while we're still here, is to get that message to these people, because they don't know. They don't know that they're already damned to hell, right? A lot of people, I saw a lot of people, they're like, oh yeah, you got this time and just make a choice. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's like, no, you're not actually on a boat hoping to make a decision in the end. You're already on the road going down. You're already there. Without accepting Christ's salvation, that's a one-way trip, right? For all fall short of the glory of God, and the wages of sin is death, right? These people do not understand this fact. So we're going to read into everlasting fire. Please, Jesus, don't go there. Revelation 20, verse 13. We're going to go read this real quick. It says, and the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them, and they were judged, every man according to their works. God is not slack, as men consider slackness. He's long-suffering. He's hanging out there. He's letting us blaspheme his name to the very last moment he can to get as many in there as possible. We're going to go read Daniel 8, chapter 8, verse 10. 10 says, and it waxed great, even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the hosts and the stars to the ground, and stamped on them. Stamped on them. Some believe that this battle is happening during the first half of the tribulation, the one we're talking about, the tail swiping down the third of the angels, right? Further along here, in just a second, we can see why they think this. The dragon is now ready to devour the child. This is believed to have been fulfilled by Herod the Great when he tried to kill Christ, right? We're going to read that here in just a second. But we have an image of this tail sweeping down the third of the stars, but then we also have the devil prepared to destroy Christ, right? So again, when we look at Revelation timeline, it's linear, kind of, right? We're constantly pulling out and seeing a big picture, and then zooming in and seeing a specific time, and then zooming out and seeing a larger picture, and then zooming back in to see a closer bit. And it's all happening at the same time. So, which makes Revelation even more fun to study. Right? We're constantly just jumping back and forth. But again, it's left to right. So, Matthew 2:16, I want to read this, says, then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all of the children that were in Bethlehem, and all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old and under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. The dragon and the government that he's running at this time is sitting there waiting to take Christ. All right, we know this story, right? We know that Jesus had to escape to where? Where did they go? Anyone tell me? Where did they leave to? Egypt. They had to go, right? Because it wasn't just one person, the whole government, right? It was Herod, the devil was jumping on him, going, pushing this in. Kill this kid. He has to die. John's seeing this in the sky here. The government, the Roman Empire at the time, not revived because it's in full swing, right? Roman Empire running Herod, waiting to take Christ. So again, time frame, jumping in, coming back in again, okay? All right, section 3. The male child, Jesus. Verse 5. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up into God and to his throne. So here, we know this is Jesus, right? And again, here's that timeline I'm talking about. John sees his birth and ascension. We know a whole bunch of stuff happened in between that, right? Whole bunch of stuff. But here, boom, boom. That's all we see. Birth, ascension. Right? Just another example there on that. This is Jesus, Psalm 2:9, right? Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like the potter's vessel. Right? It's God talking here. This is Christ. He's coming to rule everything. Right? The revived Roman Empire is going to come against him, and Jesus is going to come down and take over. That's what's going to happen. It's coming. It's coming. Right? And then being caught up, right? We got this birth and we have this caught up. We can read about Christ being caught up, this exact thing right here in Acts 1, 9 through 11, right? The Great Commission, Jesus goes up. So John is getting another image of this. Now in Daniel 7:13 says, I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven, and came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. So again, we see a quick glimpse of Christ's birth and ascension, right? All in one instant spot. Verse 6 comes in and says, And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,203 score days. So where or what is this wilderness? Anybody have an idea? The woman's going to flee to the wilderness. Right? Let's look at the word. What does the word mean? What is wilderness? Right? Eremos. Eremos means wilderness. And it is a really good word. This word means a solitary, lonely, desolate, uninhabited place which is deprived of the aid and protection of others, especially of friends, acquaintances, and families. So when it says they go out to the wilderness, they are going to the middle of nowhere, where there would be no chance for anybody to come to their aid. Now, this is important. God takes them so far out that it is impossible for anybody else to help them. Remember that. It's impossible, right? But in this inhospitable place, God promises to feed and nurture the woman of Israel for 3.5 years. Right? Again, we got this time frame. We talked about this in chapter 11, right? God has a specific timeline. Things will land exactly when they're supposed to. So God says for 3.5 years, Israel is going to be taken care of. Now, once again, God is showing his sovereignty, taking them to a place where they could not survive alone and caring for them there. John here is shown another section of God's timeline. Some say this wilderness place of refugee will be a place called Petra.
Why is it always like on 1,260 days? Because like in chapter 11 it says like they will prophesy for 3.5 years.
That's
also.
right. That's right.
Like a meaning to that number?
You're going to see this time frame several times being shown. Now, the tribulation itself is 7 years, right? We know this. Half of 7 is 3.5. So when we get these time frames, God is saying for the first half, or he's saying for the second half of this tribulation, right? Jesus is cutting this time frame right in half here. Constantly, 3.5 years, 3.5 years, right? First 3.5 years, you're going to get this, and then the next 3.5 years, you're going to get this, right? So it's just the timeline that God has laid out, those 3.5 years.
I think as well, it points to Daniel 9, prophecy of Daniel 9 as well.
Yes.
For the timeline for the 1,260 days.
Do I have that one? I think I have that one somewhere.
Yeah,
I think I have Daniel 9, but yeah, you're right. Again, it says 3.5 years, 3.5 years, 3.5 years. He's cutting into these sections, 3.5 years, 3.5 years. The desolation of abomination will take over for 3.5 years. You read about this individual in the Old Testament. That guy was, what was his name? It just flew right out of my head. There is no guy that took over. I'll come back to that because I can't remember. Okay, so the wilderness. So the wilderness, this place is just way out there. Now, if you've never heard of Petra before, it's a really cool site. Look it up online, all sorts of history. Some people believe that Petra is the place that they're going to go to. Is it specifically said in the Bible? Yeah. We're told it's the wilderness, so we do not know. We'll have to just wait and see, right? Yes. Okay. So then, the man-child is Jesus.
Antiochus, yeah.
Yes, the first abomination, desolation. This guy was wild, right? And this guy, he made the priests drink pig blood. Like, he did things to the Jews that were just wild. And we are told that the Antichrist in the tribulation is going to put this guy to shame. How bad he's going to be. As the Antiochus, he was the first. And he's the one who's referred to again in the prophecy. He's the first, what they call the Antichrist. Again, another really deep rabbit hole that I would love to dive into, but don't. Okay, section 4. We're doing good. The war and Michael's angels. War in heaven and Michael and his angels. Verse 7. Coming in, it says, And there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. His angels. So, A war breaks out in heaven. We got two opposing armies are colliding. Now this battle is happening. This one we're looking at here, is happening in the middle of the tribulation. The middle of the tribulation. Right? And remember when we just talked about the verse back behind, we're talking about the devil swiping down the third of the angels and the war coming in. It says some people think that what we were looking at there was the fight in the middle of the tribulation. Now you can kind of see why they might think that, right? We got two battles talking about here, right? But one was before, and now this one is specifically, we're talking about this specific battle right here in the middle here. Now, Michael, the archangel, has been long been linked with the affairs of Israel. Like, we talk about Israel, Michael appears and is always a part of this. And we're going to go check out Daniel 12:1. We're going to bounce around a little bit. 12:1 says, and at that time, let's talk about end times. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. So we're told right here in Daniel that at the end times it's going to be Michael who's going to stand up for Israel. He's going to stand up for Israel. We can also read in Daniel 10 verse 13, which says, but the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. Once again, Michael shows up. Verse 21 says, but I will show thee that which is noted in the scripture of truth, that there is none that holdeth with me in these things, but Michael, your prince. Right? Michael's been designated over Israel. It's kind of interesting, right? So when you see Israel's going to having issues, Michael's there. Right? When we see this end time, this war, where the devil is coming up with this whole army, he's coming. It's Michael. It's Michael and his angels that are taking this fight and this stand here. Right? And then, of course, you can read one more story about Michael in Jude, verse 9. Go check that one out. Verse 8. So, coming in. And he says, and prevailed not. Right? So the devil came up, started fighting against Michael and his angels, and they prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. We just had that question, right? Why is the devil in heaven? At this point in time, that no longer happens. He gets completely pushed out. Check this out. Verse 8, the devil and his army is defeated. All right? This was the devil's last big push to reestablish himself in the presence of God. Right? Because the devil was allowed to be in the presence of God. Right? We're going to read here in a little bit about him being accusing us all the time before God. Right? Satan was powerful, beautiful angel in heaven. But due to his pride, he wanted to be exalted above God. Now we can read about this in Ezekiel 28, 15, and 17 through 18, and Isaiah 14, 12 through 15. Gives us a description of why the devil fell. Now we can read about the devil accusing us before God in Job chapter 1, verse 9 through 10. Specifically here we're going to read in verse 6. It says, now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. Right? So we know the devil was able to still come in to the presence of God. Right? He was the one who said, I see Job down there. He's only loving you because you're blessing him so much. Let me hurt him and he'll leave you. God said, okay. Right? That was the devil. He's up there. He's looking down at us, accusing us before God. Right? Accusing us. So, the tiny little rabbit hole. When the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. Who are the sons of God? Tiny little tidbit. Sons of God equal possibly the 12 elders with the thrones before God. It's a rabbit hole. Check it out. Go look at it. I don't have time for it. But, okay. Verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil, and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. In this verse, there are more terms for Satan than anywhere else in the entire Bible. We're given these names, one here and one here and one here, but this time, we're given a list. Now, I hate to use the word names because the devil does not have a name. He has titles. He doesn't deserve a name. His name is, right? Titles. That's all he's got. Now, we look at this, the great dragon, right? is a figurative description of the devil and his government. We just talked about that, right? Yes, sir.
Doesn't the devil have like a real name that isn't in the Bible and God's kept it like super secret? So
Possible. Yeah, 100% possible.
I heard
Yeah.
something about that.
Yeah. You have the Hebrew word, the Hebrew name, description for the devil is Satanas, and then the Greek is Diabolos. They both mean the same thing. They mean deceiver, the one who lies constantly. That's all, right? No name, just titles. So again, the serpent, another title, means an artful or malicious person, right? Another description. Devil, Diabolos, slanderer, false accuser, and Satanas, adversary or accuser. Yes, sir.
Where did they get Lucifer from then?
Lucifer means bringer of light. Again, it's just another title that the Greeks gave. Yep. There's so many rabbit holes diving all over the place. I love rabbit holes. All right, so now the scripture tells us the devil is cast out and banished to the earth. And all that were on his side. Right? Now here, I want you to notice this, that they are also called angels. Now, this is interesting. So we just got talking about how this battle specifically is happening in the second half, the beginning of the second half of the tribulation. So when it's talking about angels, we know that the third of the angels that were taken down with the devil are currently in chains in the abyss, waiting for the day of judgment. So who are these guys? Who are these guys? Rabbit hole, we're going to dive down this one. The word angel. The word angel. Now, you've heard this before, right? A lot of people say it's angelos. It's actually angelos. It's kind of a goofy word. Angelos, right? And it doesn't. It means messenger. It means envoy. It means one who is sent. And contextually, it can mean a messenger from God. Contextually. Specifically stated. Right? But the word itself does not mean messenger from God. Interesting. So, again, unless specifically stated that they came from God, a messenger can be sent by anyone. An angelos can be sent by anyone. If I send Eli to go tell Brother Jamie something, he is a messenger. An angelos. An angel. Interesting. Now, the word can also mean, again, envoy. A group. A large mass, right? I got to go to this one, Matthew 11:10 says, "For this is he, of whom it is written, Behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare thy way before thee." Now, Jesus uses this word to depict John the Baptist and his envoy of disciples preparing the way for Jesus to come, right? In John 1, 40 through 43, you can also read about the two of John the Baptist's disciples who are part of this envoy leaving to follow Jesus. Right? So when Jesus is talking about John the Baptist, how he's coming before him, the word he uses is messenger, but in this specific case, it's used as envoy. John the disciple and his followers that are going to be leading the way for Christ. Right? I know this one is hard to wrap around. So, we now know that this word angelos means more than just God's messengers. So, who exactly are these who make up the army of Satan? I don't know. I don't know. The Bible doesn't tell us. Just that he has one, he's accrued it, and they're against God. That's what we know. Unclean spirits, demons, fallen ones, they have lots of titles, right? But no names. Again, but the point is here is they lose. That's the most important thing. Doesn't matter who they are. They lose. They lose big, right? The devil is cast to the earth and his army. So not just the devil, him and all of his buddies that are against God are also coming down to earth. No more do they find their place in heaven. Right? Their time is short, only 3.5 years to go. Right? So the devil will begin to truly unleash on the world. This is where the Antichrist really starts to take center stage, right? This halfway point. The deceiver of the whole world is who we're talking about here. And you read about this again in 2 Timothy 3:13. And we're going to come over here to 2 John. Oh, I'm going the wrong direction. 2 John 7. 2 John verse 7 says, "For many deceivers are entered into the world, who confess not that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh. This is the deceiver and an antichrist." Anyone who isn't doing the will of God is doing the will of the devil. If you are not bringing light of Christ and his gospel, you are bringing the darkness of deception and death. There's no gray. There just isn't any gray. You're either on God's side, bringing the gospel and bringing people in, or you are not on God's side, and you are fighting God. Right? So judgment is coming. The devil will take as many as he can with him into hell. Death and destruction for God's creation. That's all he lives for. That's all he wants to do, is to destroy you, to hurt you, to see you in pain, to see you stumbling. That's all he cares about. That's it. That's it. That's what you get out there. That's what the world offers you right there, is what the devil offers you. Section 5. Rejoice. Whoa. Verse 10. "And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ. And the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night." Accused before God day and night. Let's take a look at here. Zechariah 3:1. 3:1 says, "And he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to resist him." Right? It's hard to understand why God let the devil back into heaven and why he was allowed to be in God's throne room. Right? And he's allowed to be there, pointing at you, showing God your mistakes, as though God doesn't know them. Right? But he's up there, right now, pointing at you. Pointing. Look at this guy. Look at this girl. Look. How could you love this person? How could you love this person? This is what he's doing up there. Until this moment right here. Halfway through the tribulation, he makes his final push to take over. He thinks he's got it. He's got his army. He's got his one world government. It's all falling into line. And he's going to push. He's going to fail. He's going to fall. And that's halfway through the tribulation. Right? Halfway through. So he is no longer going to be able to be up there accusing God's people. Verse 11. "And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto death." Right? These persecuted Jewish believers overcome the devil. Right? How? Based on Jesus Christ's sacrifice, this will be their testimony. Because of their faith in him, they are sealed with them with their own blood. These will be martyred for the faith. It's not going to get any easier. The people who realize after we get taken what's going on, whether they decide to pick Jesus or stand against the devil, it is going to be bad. Bad. Right? Based on Christ's sacrifice, this will be the testimony. Because of their faith, right? They'll be martyred. Luke 14:26. This is Jesus here again. "If any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yea, and his own life, he cannot be my disciple." Cannot. You must turn away from everything out there in the world. 180. You've got to. Or Jesus says, you cannot be my disciple. You can't be lukewarm, he'll spit you out. You can't sit on the fence. There is no gray. There's no gray. It doesn't exist. Verse 12, "Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them." Right? Ye that dwell in them. And then it says, "Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time." We know the doors are closing. We know the time is coming. It's coming. When you can't get saved anymore. It's coming. At this point in time, there's 3.5 years. There's 3.5 years it's working its way down. But rejoice, the word rejoice is euphranio. Euphranio. Make joyful, to be glad, to marry. We could also say to celebrate. Right? And they do so by singing another song. Right? They're going to get it. We're going to sing another song here in just a second. But then again, we have woe. Right? It says, heavens, rejoice. We're in heaven at this point. We're going to hear this. Rejoice, right? Time to celebrate. Everyone who's up here, celebrate. This is good times. Everybody who's down there, buckle up. Whoa, right? We learned a new word for that, right? It's going to be so terrible that the warning, the word used to warn us about it, is a new one. Whoa, whoa, right? Revelation 8:13 is the first time we look at that. We see the 8:13. I'll come back in and read it again. It says, and I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth by reason of the other voices of the trumpets of the three angels which are yet to sound. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And here we are, we're in the last little bit. Whoa. Woe to those who are still down there. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. The inhabitants of the earth are about to truly suffer. The devil is furious, and his time is growing short. Verse 13 says, and when the dragon saw that he was cast into the earth, he persecuted the women which brought forth the man-child. So the devil begins to wrap up the persecution of the Jewish people. He comes back down, and he's mad. He's been thrown down. So what is he going to do? He's going to ramp it up. He's going to start making sure everybody suffers, right? He knows his time is coming. He knows what's coming for him. He wants to take as many people down with him as he possibly can. In verse 14 it says, and to the woman were given 2 great wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time and times and half a time from the face of the serpent. We see this time frame again, right? The remnant here, it says, will be given a way of escape. They will be taken to a place where the earth will care for them. They will go there for 3.5 years. So we're told that there's a remnant. The devil and his army is going to come crashing back to earth. He's going to turn. He's going to start persecuting. And God's going to take that remnant and give them wings like an eagle and fly them out. Whether that means they're going to jump in Air Force One or something, I don't know. Right? But they're out of there. God says, I'm going to take them out. Save you guys. The remnant, right? Verse 14. They'll be gone for 3.5 years. Again, we see this time frame each time. Now we're going to go do some reading again. Daniel 7:25 says this. And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And they shall be given into his hand until the times and the dividing of times. 3.5 years. Right? We're told it's going to go down for 3.5 years. Then we come over here and we're going to read Daniel 12. Daniel 12, verse 7. Says, and I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand into heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times and a half. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the powers of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. The devil's going to come in, mad. He's going to be kicking and screaming and throwing a fit and lighting fires and killing people and doing all sorts of things. And it's been told to us for quite some time now. Right? We know that this is coming. We know that this is coming. Verse 15 says, and the serpent cast out of his mouth waters as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. We're going to read Isaiah 59:19. Says, so shall they fear the name of the Lord from the west, and his glory from the rising of the sun. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him. Again, we're here saying, the devil's going to try to flood them out. He's going to drown them. Which is interesting, because how did God end everybody before we call it the what? The flood. Right? God used the flood to wipe out all of humanity. And then we got what in the sky to tell us it's never going to happen again? Rainbow. We got one, right? So what's the devil going to try to do? He's going to try to pervert this and make God a liar, and he's going to try to kill his people with a flood. Right? There's this reason he picked this, right? He's trying to slap God in the face. He's like, you said you'll never kill your people with a flood. I'm going to kill your people with a flood. Arrogancy of this guy is something else, right? Devil attempts to use a flood to kill God's people. Verse 16, and the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. The earth itself is going to crack open and consume the water. Another miracle of God. Now remember, they're out there in the middle of nowhere where no help can reach them. And all of a sudden, a flood starts rushing in at them. better have some faith, right? And that's why. Nobody can help them. So when they are given help, it's natural help. The earth opens up. You know it's God. You know it's God, right? And finally, verse 17. The dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which kept the commandments of God and had the testimony of Jesus Christ. The devil will never stop trying to kill God's creation. If Jesus Christ had not created a way out, the devil would get us all. We're lost, completely lost without Jesus, right? If he hadn't done what he done, then what did he do? What did Jesus do to help us out? Can someone tell me? I see the gears turning. What verse tells us what Jesus did for us? Come on, y'all know it's part of Romans Road. We've done 3:23. We've done 6:23. What comes next? Romans 5:8. For while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. He gave us a way out, right? You're going to hell. You're going to stand before God and be told all the things that you've done wrong in your life, and you're going to suffer them. Or you can accept Jesus Christ's payment of that sin. Christ stood in your place and took your punishment for you. That's what he's done. So what do we do with this, right? Again, Romans 10:9. And I want to go right back to it. If you guys haven't put a marker on Romans, in this Romans road, please do. Put your markers in here. Romans 10:9, I'm going to read it straight out. It says that, if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus Christ, and shalt believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. You got to believe. It's got to be who you are, right? There's a lot of people who know a lot more about the Bible and verses and words than I do. Tons of people. But I believe it. I don't know it, right? It's just not something I know. This is who I am. I'm a son of God. You're a daughter of God, right? This needs to be who you are. You have to believe the words, right? Because just knowing isn't going to do anything about it. There's lots of people who are going to stand before God because, I know who Jesus is. Yeah, I heard of him. What is Jesus going to say? I don't know you. I don't know you. Just because you know about Jesus, that doesn't get you in. You have to believe. You have to make it who you are. Okay. And 3 final thoughts. Where will you spend eternity? It's the most important question that you can ask yourself. What's going to happen when I die? A lot of people will just tell you nothing. You're an accident. You're going to die. You're going to go in the dirt. I'll tell you that ain't true. And every one of us knows deep down that ain't true. Where are you going to spend eternity? Time is growing short. You've only got 2 choices. Jesus or hell. Time is growing short. Please choose Jesus. And if you have chosen Jesus, good. The question I have for you, though, is this. Are you being spiritually washed daily by spending time in the Word of God? In Ephesians 5:26, right, we're told that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the Word. Did you know that you are spiritually cleansed by spending time in reading the Word of God? Jesus gives us the example to his disciples of getting all washed up, getting yourself all cleaned up, and then having to go to the bathroom. You make your way out to the, right? Well, you're all clean, you make it out there, you do your business, you come on back, and what happened though? What's dirty? Our feet. Nothing you can do about it. As soon as you went out there, you got dirty. That's what it's like out in the world. Right? You read your Bible, you get washed clean spiritually. The moment you step out into the world, it starts sticking to you. It starts making you dirty. Right? You can clean yourself spiritually through the Word of God. So again, where will you spend eternity? Please let it be heaven. If you don't know, please talk to us. Right? Time is growing short. Please choose Jesus. And please, if you have chosen Jesus, spend daily time in the Word. Whether it's 5 or 10 minutes, pick a chapter. I love Proverbs, right? Whatever day it is, like today's what, the 20, my brain's all fried out, whatever it is. That's a proverb that I read today, right? That's how I just keep my track. You can do more, you can do less, but do something. Spend some time in the Word of God. Let it clean you. Let it wash you clean of the dirt and the muck that's sticking to you out in this world, right? Let it do that.